by 6. What's up, everybody? Are you in the mood for some creepy campfire stories? Here's one of my new shirts I recently got. I'm excited. 1 week from today, as of this recording, the first home UVA football game. All right. Doing it from a little bit slightly different position today. We're almost to the campground. As you can see, we've got the fire pit and the chair up here. Wood pile down here. Kind of wanted to give you an angle you haven't seen for a while, because I'm so amazed at how what used to be a hayfield, which then became a meadow, is now almost a forest. Check this out real quick. Look at this. That's the meadow. And to give you just an example, I'm excited about this. It's been 6 years since this has been cut. I'm 5'10". So, I mean, these trees are like 15 feet tall now. And don't worry, I'm getting to the creepy stories. Just want to share this with you. There's a lot of folks who have been here for years that have been here since this was a field. And so it means something to them. So be patient. Look, there's deer trails going through here now. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, we got persimmon thickets up here, and they do grow fruit now, more trees. Got evergreens just popping up, pine trees. It's like maybe 3 acres back here that we've allowed to grow back into forest. And who knows, maybe for the first time ever, next year our house down here will be 120 years old, built in 1903. Interestingly, it started out originally as a sharecropper's house, and one of the stories we have for you this evening is about another haunted sharecropper's house in Tennessee. Really creepy story. So yeah, things are coming along nicely here. Got all kinds of wildlife up here: deer, bears, turkeys, squirrels, rabbits. We see it all. Not to keep you waiting, let's go ahead and get on with the first one. This one is creepy. If you were here yesterday, and you might remember me saying that I was editing these stories, getting them ready to come up here and tell them properly so they could flow smoothly, and not that anybody who's turning in stories is like turning in stuff that's like terrible or hackish. Just a couple corrections need to be made, have needed to be made, so that they'll flow more smoothly and be told the way they're deserving to be told. But I mentioned that I was getting so creeped out and scared I had to kind of like leave the room. I was in a room alone. I had to go into the room my wife was in watching a movie. This is the story that scared me. So, with no further ado, as my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl, would say, this one comes to us from Laura Church, who actually has turned in a couple of stories. And again, if you have a story that you would like for me to share with our audience, the email is crazylake@mail.com. Do your best, don't just type it out and send it. Do your best to go through and proofread it and stuff to make it easier on our end so that we can get it out here to you quicker. Try to keep them under, 500 words if you can. Laura Church writes, "Hi Kevin, it's me again, Laura. I just sent a short story last night," it's the one I read yesterday, "but I felt I wasn't doing justice by not sharing my most horrific experience. I'm not a writer, I hated English, I am Southern, country as they come, so excuse me please." So was William Faulkner. He was from Mississippi. His library is down here at the University of Virginia, where he turned in all, of course, if you ever read The Sound and the Fury, it's very difficult to understand, but that had nothing to do with him being Southern. He created his own style. This goes back 16 years, when my son was just starting to jump out of his crib and run into my room at night. He was about 12 to 14 months old at the time, and he loved to jump and run. He is a very athletic kid. The noises he made from the jumping, the pitter-patter of little feet, always brought a smile to my face. One afternoon, I'd lain down to take a nap and was almost asleep when I heard the jump and pitter-patter of little feet running down the hall to my room. I lay, waiting on him to grab the covers and pull himself up. I could feel the covers being tugged off of me as he climbed. He then crawled up behind me and snuggled me around my neck, placing his arm around my shoulder area, squeezing so lightly. He often did this and just cuddled with me. It was so sweet. Then, all at once, his squeeze tightened and my ears stopped up as if I was going to cross a mountain. A little face came up to my ear and started whispering in a language I did not know. But I knew one thing: it was demonic. Fear gripped me. I couldn't move, scream, or anything. I started saying, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," over and over in my mind. That's all I could muster up. But it worked, and that thing left me. I stood up and walked down the hall to my son's room to see him sleeping peacefully. That thing has tried to come back since, but I've been ready, and I never forget my prayers. You can use this story any way you wish, and you can use my name. Thank you for sharing all you do with us. Sincerely, Laura Church. Laura, I got the heebie-jeebies just reading that one again. Thank you for sharing that story and that experience. Yeah, I got to look back here behind my back, do a double take after reading that. Creepy. This one is scary too. When I went back into my office, bedroom, I was actually editing in our bedroom yesterday. After I was, got that story out of my head, I went back and did this one, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was done. I was done for the day. This was the last one. Whew. Hello, Kevin. And we were given permission. This is from Tina Brown. So Tina Brown, if you're watching, and this is your story. Hello, Kevin. I really enjoy your videos and watch them religiously. I live in Tennessee near the Clinch Mountains. You may use my name if you wish, and by the way, we hillbillies have thick skin. Yes, we do. I need to tell my story in hopes there are more of the same scenarios out there and I can finally be redeemed as sane. Here goes. There were 4 of us camping in the woods at a place you probably know as Elrod Falls. It was late at night and we had a campfire and we were having a really good time. My sister, who was one of the 4 of us, which also included her husband and my boyfriend, needed to, quote, use the woods. So I went with her. You know how girls are. We can't even go by ourselves in the woods. I was standing with my back to her when I noticed a flickering of light out of the corner of my eyes, and I thought she was finished with her business and had lit a cigarette. I turned around, and not 2 arms lengths from me, at eye level and right above my still tinkling sis, was an orb as big as a beach ball, and it was glowing as if it were on fire. However, the light wasn't reflecting off of or shining onto anything else. Not my sister and me, nor the trees around us. In the middle of this mass, it looked sort of like a lava lamp, but instead of being clear on the outside, reddish in the middle, it was more like a burning orange. It's so hard to describe it, being that I've never seen those colors before, so that's the closest I can say as far as describing it. This orb was also intelligent, because when I saw it, after my initial shock, of course, I gave a pretty good scream. My sister fell backwards on the ground, and it shot straight up into the top of the tree behind my sis. It did this in the way that something that was scared would jump, like a cat or an animal. I tried to get my sister to look up, but she was too busy giving me lip for scaring the daylights out of her, and she thought it was a joke, and she wasn't going to fall for it. It took a split second, if that, for it to get to the top of that tree, and with a speed that we can't comprehend. Then it left the tree and shot through the forest canopy and into the sky. To this day, my sister thinks I made it up, but I will take this to my grave as the honest-to-God truth. I'm hoping to find others who have had this experience with sightings of this nature. Thank you for letting me share. My name is Tina Brown. Tina said something here in the second paragraph of her story, and she ends up finishing with it here at the end as well. I'm glad I finally got around to doing this, allowing you folks to send in stories about your experiences with all things paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, cryptozoological. Again, the email is crazylake@mail.com. It's not raining. Man, when we come up here, weird stuff just starts happening. But it's fun. It's fun hearing your old stories, but it's also interesting. Here's the thing about these types of stories, because I'll often run into people, and there's, by the way, October Nights Part 2, 31 more tales for the Halloween season well, it's out. I think there are 5 print copies left on our Etsy store. Of course, you can get them on Amazon, the links to both of which are in the description box below. But when I meet people, because there's a story in there where I talk about this, because I met a guy at Jamestown about a year or so ago. Wow. Speaking of Tina's fiery orb, check out that sun setting back there behind the wood line there. At least we hope that's the sun setting and not a fiery orb. Watch it. Let's make sure it keeps going down instead of up. But anytime I talk to people, you know, just small talking with somebody and it comes up, what do you do? And after I tell them I'm a writer, and they laugh and they say, well, no, really, what do you do? And well, I'm a YouTuber. And then they laugh at that too. I just heard a tree knock. And of course they laugh if they ask where I'm from, and I tell them I'm originally from West Virginia. These are like the three most hilarious things in the world for some reason. I have all three of them. Being from West Virginia, being a writer, and being a YouTuber. For some reason, people just find this to be hilarious. And they keep saying, no, seriously, what do you do? What do you do? Whatever. When I explain to them what it is I write about, because they ask, and I mentioned paranormal, supernatural, this type of thing, they always laugh. They laugh at that too. I guess that's the fourth funniest thing in the world. But once they stop laughing, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And I think a lot of times these folks feel comfortable telling them to me because I kind of like write about this kind of stuff and kind of go out there and explore and do some research in the field. Everybody's got a story. So it's nice having a place where you can now bring your story and, like Tina says, not feel, you know, like you're the only one that's had something really weird happen. So if you got a story, send it in. Now, this next one, really creepy. See, I'm going to go ahead and give the name here. We were given permission. Charlene Robinson, who I think is also from Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. No, she grew up in East Tennessee, okay. Or her dad did, at least. We're getting to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Charlene Robinson, I could so relate to your story because of the fact that my family and I do live in a 119-year-old sharecropper's house on a haunted property and inside a haunted house. I mean, there's no potentiality about it, okay? That cat's out of the bag. I had to kind of stretch that out for a few years to get to this point, but we've seen too many things in these videos. We've experienced too many things down in the house. We've brought stuff home with us from me going out and doing some investigative type stuff elsewhere, bringing it home in the camera and stuff. It's a freaking monkey. You hear that? All right, let's get on with it. Kevin, I have watched you for a couple of years now and enjoy your channel very much. I have sent you several stories in the comments and to this new email address as well. You have always graciously commented and read my tales, so you may think this is one too many, and that's okay. No, I don't. But it is a true story I think you will appreciate. You can use it in my name in any way you like. Everyone already knows I'm crazy too. See, us crazy folks, us thick-skinned hillbillies, we all got to stick together. My dad grew up in East Tennessee during the Depression. His dad, known as Pop, was a sharecropper when this story began, and Dad was a preteen. I have a million stories about them, but most are not paranormal. If I ever do a compilation, it will be somewhat different from your genre, though I might decide to include this one story too. The way sharecropping works is that the farmer and his family will live in a house and tend to the land, paying the rent with half the money they get from the sale of whatever crop they raise that year. That is the formal explanation. Pop was a well-known moonshiner, so I think we know that the profit from this liquid crop was also a consideration. You ever notice how people try to hide that when they're actively moonshiners or whatever, growing the stinky bud? But man, once they're gone, it's like family pride, something to be proud of. And that's not a knock on you here, Charlene. That's just something I've noticed about folks. Well, I guess because you can't go out there announcing it while they're still doing it, because come to Popo. Anyway, it was not unusual to move from time to time back then. Families grow and you need a bigger place or you don't like your landlord. Reasons that are not that different from renting today. Now, Pop was a mountain man in every sense of the word. He was afraid of nothing and no one. If he could see it, he could stop it with his rifle, his whip, or his knife. If he couldn't see it, it didn't exist and was not a threat. And he was raising Dad to be the same way. One year, a farm came up for rent and the owner sought out Pop and offered it to him for a fraction of the usual amount. It sounded too good to be true, so Pop asked around to find out why. It seems no one had ever made it a year in this house because The folks said the house was haunted. Between the violin music in the attic, chains rattling in the kitchen, and worst of all, the front door opening and the sound of footsteps going across the front room and up the stairs at night, everyone who had tried to live there had given up and left before the lease was out. Well, Pop thought all that was superstitious nonsense and certainly no reason to pass up this great deal. Dad thought it would be fun to track down all the supposed haints and disprove them, so he took the lead on that, and the family packed up their furniture and moved into the so-called haunted house. And FYI, if you're not from Appalachia, haint is another term for like ghosts. Dad quickly found the violin. The sound was the result of wind blowing through splinters in the seal of the attic window. Dad thought that anyone who confused that with violin music had never heard a real fiddle played. Just an angry gray squirrel. Thought it was a haint, but it ain't. He found the source of the rattling chains in the kitchen, and I don't remember what he said it was, but it was equally silly. Maybe something about the pipes in the wall. I'm not sure after all these years. That might be a bird. I don't know. Maybe it ain't. Then he fixed the door so it wouldn't just open anymore. It was only the wind and a bad latch. He was proud of himself for having rationally resolved the mysteries of the haunted house, except the footsteps up the stairs. He and Pop had thought the sounds would stop when the door quit blowing open. After all, it was just the wind scattering leaves and debris across the old hardwood floor and making crackling sounds, right? Guess not. Because, while they didn't hear the door open anymore, they continued to hear sounds like someone walking across the front room floor and going upstairs to bed. And there was no yard debris blowing in now. The floor was clean. He never found a rational explanation for this, and it continued every night until they finally moved out, on their own terms and when they wanted to leave. They were the first to live there an entire year, but they never solved the mystery of the sounds of footsteps going up the stairs and into one of the bedrooms. Now, fast forward 30 years later. Dad has grown up, fought in World War II, half a world away, married, living his life in the city many miles from where that old house was. It was a dim memory. But he still has the bed he had as a youngster. It was now in an upstairs bedroom in what was our house. And sometimes, when all was quiet, as we sat in our first floor living room, so far removed in space and time from that old house in McMinnville, Tennessee, we would hear footsteps going up the stairs and into the bedroom where his old bed was, and then the squeak and creak of the old metal box springs as someone lay down to rest. But it doesn't stop there. As a teenager, I had a girlfriend who slept over once, and only once. Later, I would find out why only once. My friend told me that she had gotten up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. As she stood in the hallway, she was surprised to see a young woman going down the stairs. This strange person, someone my friend did not recognize as anyone she had ever seen or known before, certainly no one from our neighborhood, was dressed in Victorian clothes and wearing a veil. When this stranger turned and saw my friend, she just vanished. She did not walk away. She did not leave through the door. Just poof, like smoke. And my friend never came back to my house after dark again. Charlene Robinson. Charlene, thank you so much for your story. Ladies, all of you, all three of you who turned in stories to be read today, thank you for submitting your stories. The sun's down and it's getting creepy, so I guess I'm going to take off out of here. So thanks for joining me for another evening of ghost stories. If you have one, submit it to the channel. Again, the email address is crazylake@mail.com. We'll get to it. We still have a pile. Erie and myself are going through and editing some of the stuff that's been coming in over the last couple of weeks. Charlene Robinson, I've got to give you kudos. You mentioned in your story about writing a book. I only made 2 changes, and those changes weren't even necessary. They weren't due to grammatical errors or any sort of typing mistakes. It was just for flow, and it had to do more with my style versus your style. Excellent job. That was 1,000 words. I had no problem reading that because I didn't have to, I just read it and I was like, wow, this is like ready to go. Whereas editing 1,000 words that was not written like that might take half an hour. Charlene, you should write a book. You've got the talent, you've got the skill, you've got the ability. All of you out there, if you've got a story, you send it in. Whether you're like our first submitter that, you don't like literature or English or whatever the case may be. If you got a story, I'll do my best to clean it up to make it tellable out here. And hers didn't need much work anyway. You guys are doing great. Remember, it's about the story. So if you got one, send it, crazylake@mail.com. See you for more next time.